We've talked about how some of the wide receivers have missed at time to this point. Amari Cooper, of course. Marquise Goodwin, of course. Anthony Schwartz, of course. Other wide receivers have gotten an opportunity. Cedric Tillman being one. Of course, David Bell being another. But nobody other than Elijah Moore has looked fantastic to this point thus far in Browns training camp. And don't be surprised, because you've heard it all here on Locked On Browns. Your latest Locked On Browns starts now.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound LGB on the LOB, the Locked On Browns podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Appreciate everybody who makes Locked On Browns their first listen every single day. My biggest suggestion is, why don't you all get with the everydayers? And the best way to join the everydayers is by subscribing to the Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Notifications on, so when the content drops, you're there to absorb it. Locked On Browns is always available, always free, wherever you get your podcasts. This episode of Locked On Browns is brought to you by eBay Motors. A championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. Same with your vehicle. So for parts that fit, head to eBay Motors and look for the green check. Stay in the game with eBay Guaranteed Fit. ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. Day 3 of Cleveland Browns 2023 training camp down at the Greenbrier in West Virginia is a wrap. And what we've gotten to see, and we talked yesterday, obviously some injuries at the wide receiver position. All of these guys did not practice again today. Damon Jones out again today, second straight day sick for Damon Jones. The linebackers, obviously, Sione Takitaki, and of course, Anthony Walker. We've talked about these guys, very limited to what they can do to this point, but the fact that they're on the field in any capacity and not on a PUP list, et cetera, is a big, big get. But the wide receiver position, and we're going to get to a couple of the guys here. Look, David Bell, and I'm actually hearing, on social media, seeing on social media, guys, David Bell's making this team. He was a top 100 pick last year in a terrible situation for a rookie wide receiver to be expected. And he still had more receptions as a rookie than Donovan Peoples-Jones did. David Bell is going to get an opportunity. I think things are going to be a lot more comfortable for David Bell this year. Huge upgrade in the quarterback play. Did have 5 receptions. I think it was 5 or a little bit more, closing out the season down the stretch with Deshaun Watson. Is he going to be a top option here? No, not at all. It's going to be Elijah Moore. That's going to be Donovan Peoples-Jones. That's going to be Amari Cooper. But is there going to be an opportunity for David Bell? 100%. So anybody with the talk of David Bell getting cut from this team, that's something that's probably just got to stop right now. Cedric Tillman, initial thoughts. First things first, you see what you can see on Cedric Tillman to this point. Cedric Tillman is a big, big kid. Fills out that jersey and fills it out well. Easily the Browns' biggest wide receiver by far. And seeing some from OTAs and obviously, a little bit here in training camp, the thing that's been impressive impressive thus far at this point with Cedric Tillman is he's very, very flexible. He's got great body control for a guy who is this big, 6'3", probably every bit of 220. But he moves well. Obviously, we know he runs well, but his adjustments to the ball, very, very great thus far showing from Cedric Tillman. The ability to get to, low and way balls at 6'3" isn't always easy. He's got that. The ability to adjust to the ball up in the air, catch point. Very, very impressive to this point. Cedric Tillman, the opportunity is going to be there down the road. Probably not going to be a huge factor here in 2023, of course. But Cedric Tillman, there's a player with inside that body. But this gets me to, we're still doing the tea. And so here we go, a little sip of the tea. Once the Elijah Moore deal was done, I told you all how excited I was. I've probably doubled down, tripled down since then. I just feel Elijah Moore will lead this team in receptions this year. Maybe not yards, maybe not touchdowns. But Elijah Moore, all you see is Elijah Moore catching the ball. every clip you see is a ball, whether it's over the middle, whether it's on the sidelines. Elijah Moore is making play after play after play. And to his credit, Elijah Moore attached himself to Deshaun Watson, probably from that period at the end of OTAs to before camp. So wherever Deshaun went to work out, Elijah Moore was kind of like, the little brother in tow, like, hey, man, I'm not going to miss these opportunities. Elijah Moore's got, puts a lot of pressure on himself. Elijah Moore has a lot of expectations for himself. Comes in here a player, upset with the way it went in New York. And it wasn't just the Garrett Wilson being drafted. It just wasn't Zach Wilson not panning out. And it wasn't just it just didn't work out. So it was a real difficult spot for Elijah Moore to be in. But to this point, you're all starting to see everything I thought Elijah Moore could be with this team. Keep in mind, 2020 at Ole Miss, he played 8 games, 89 receptions, about 1,200 yards. Of the 8 games Elijah Moore played for the Rebels at Ole Miss in 2020, 8 games, 3 of them, he went over 200 yards receiving. 3 of them. This is the SEC. This isn't a MAC. This isn't, these other, smaller conferences. This is the SEC. And Elijah Moore went for 1,200 yards in 8 games and went over 2 bills 3 times against SEC opponents in 2020. Elijah Moore, and you see the clips now, the Browns are using him as an extension of the running game. He will definitely be an extension of the screen game. He is penciled in as their slot receiver. This is going to be a coup of coups. You gave up your 2nd-round pick. You got back the 3rd-round pick. You used that to draft Cedric Tillman. You got Elijah Moore in the process. So you improved this wide receiver room for today, and you improved this wide receiver room for the future. If you guys are not ready for what Elijah Moore is going to bring to this team, then I don't know what's going on, and maybe I'm not doing my job correctly. I am sitting here pounding the table. I know you've all got fantasy drafts coming up here. Yes, Amari Cooper is a very, very solid option for the Cleveland Browns. And as far as a fantasy wide receiver, don't be afraid to get in a little bit earlier than expected on Elijah Moore. I think Elijah Moore is going to catch 90 passes this year. I think Elijah Moore is going to be right around 1,000 yards. I think Elijah Moore is going to be right around 8 touchdowns, and he might be able to get a touchdown, 2 or more on the ground. Elijah Moore is going to tear it up for the Cleveland Browns this year. Just book it. I mean, I'm done even talking about it. Elijah Moore is going to be a special, special talent for this team. He has yak ability. He's a great route runner. He has great overall foot speed. Elijah Moore was a very, very special get for this team. And it's smooth and a just deft move done by Andrew Berry to bring Elijah Moore here. This move is going to pay dividends in 2023. This move is going to pay dividends in the long run for your Cleveland Browns. We're going to switch it up here. We get some defensive talk here. Obviously, got a little bit more of a focus on the defense here today. First day in training camp, we've kind of got to see a little bit more of the defense here. Again, even the team drills kind of going half speed. It's basically initial first step, initial reads, and then everything just kind of slowing down. Let's start to amp it up here as the Browns will practice again tomorrow on Tuesday, off on Wednesday. Browns scheduled at this point to throw on the pads for Friday and Saturday. I am Jeff Lloyd, your host of Locked On Browns. I appreciate everybody for being along for the ride. This episode of Locked On Browns is sponsored by BetterHelp. I've talked to you guys millions of times. I had my older brother pass away, my father pass away within 11 months of each other. It was a really, really difficult time. Had a lot to do with my business life, had a lot to do with my personal life, and I still had to find a way to still be the best husband and father I could be every single day. Look, sometimes in life we're faced with tough choices and the path forward isn't always clear. Again, I've told you by experience. So whether you're dealing with decisions around your career, relationships, or anything else, therapy helps you stay connected to what you really want while you navigate life so you can move forward with confidence and excitement. Trusting yourself to make decisions that align with your values is like anything. The more you practice it, the easier it gets. When you're learning how to change and you need positive coping skills and you need to learn how to set boundaries, therapy empowers you to be the best version of yourself. It isn't just for those who've experienced major trauma. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suitable to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Continuing on here, your latest Locked On Browns. Your host, Jeff Lloyd. I appreciate everybody makes Locked On Browns their first listen every single day. I suggest you join the everyday crowd by subscribing to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Locked On Browns, again, always available, always free, wherever you get your podcasts. As we go through this weird age where a lot of big media outlets are doing away from day-to-day coverage of your favorite team, that's what makes us here Locked On even more special. This is totally what we're about. We are here for you, the fan, every single day, trying to give you the best coverage of your team every single day. We've got to a little bit here on the defensive side of the ball here. And look, obviously there's, questions, roles, and look, nothing's truly defined yet to this point. It's most certainly starting to see maybe first team reps, Jordan Elliott, Dalvin Tomlinson. I think we're all still hoping, are the Browns going to make a move for a veteran defensive tackle while they're still on the road down in West Virginia? Maybe not. Maybe take care of that business when you kind of get closer back up here to Berea. But for now, it looks like Jordan Elliott, getting the first team reps. Keep in mind, you're not really going to win or lose your position just by basically training camp practices. Obviously exhibition games have something to do that as well. So we'll start to see when it starts to go a little bit more live here, if anybody starts to make a difference within that defensive tackle room. Quarterback wise, what we've seen early, and maybe not to the overall thrill of Greg Newsome, but Martin Emerson on the outside, Denzel Ward on the outside. Mostly what we've seen at this point is Greg Newsome on the inside. Does not mean Greg Newsome is not going to get outside reps. Just reporting the information as it comes to us to this point, obviously. Linebackers, again, we're getting the Tony Fields, the Jacob Phillipses of the world, and the Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah of the world. While we wait till Anthony Walker, Sione Taki are able to amp it up a little bit here, give a little bit more here in training camp practice. This is as both guys, again, coming back from serious injuries that ended their 2022 season. But the fact that the guys are participating in any spot anyhow whatsoever is good to this point, certainly. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, there was media availability today. Jeremiah spoke about his weight. I think the Browns and Coach Jason Tarver, I think there was some specific number in mind that they kind of wanted JOK to play at. And for JOK, I believe it's a belief pattern. You got to believe if you're JOK, if I'm playing at a lighter weight, you're going to have the defensive tackles that are going to keep me clean and are going to allow me at a lighter weight to be as fast as I possibly can, to be as athletic as I possibly can. And Jeremiah did say he was able to cut weight and put some mass on, and that is certainly possible. But the Browns would like Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah at a lower weight. But that does come with a caveat. And you kind of understand it a little bit from Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. If what went on last year, where you were getting lambasted by 300-pound interior offensive linemen, your first concern is, well, maybe I'm not big enough. And you have to have faith in the players in front of you. You have to have faith in what the organization has done. You have to have faith in defense coordinator Jim Schwartz, that when all of these people are telling you something and they want you at this lighter weight, you have to have the faith and the trust and the belief that it's going to work out in front of you. And this is what's tough for JOK. And he's always been a hybrid defender. We all know this. So for JOK to be able to run around at a lighter weight, the goal has to be that he's kept clean. It's just simple math. So he's vowed to play at a lighter weight, and he's put an onus on being lighter. Again, said he put on a little mass, but the overall weight is down. But the goal is to just have, and this has always been the goal, is to just have Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah seek and destroy. He is a read, pursue, tackle type of guy. And that is what they're trying to do. And we'll see if they've done enough at the interior defensive tackle to allow for JOK to succeed in this type of, theory premise. But that is what they are hoping for Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. And that is why he is probably viewed as the top of this linebacker room, even though guys like Anthony Walker, Sione Takitaki have had probably more success and more experience to this point. JOK also talked about his season-ending injury last year, the Lisfranc sprain. And the Lisfranc, it's just saying Lisfranc definitely gets people nervous. The injury is very, very, but again, we're just common schmucks, folks. For us to come back from a Lisfranc, it could take 2 years. But JOK was faced with surgery or rehab. JOK went the rehab route on the Lisfranc injury. To this point, he's not feeling any pain. To this point, he is performing well. He is moving well, rocking that new number 6 jersey. So all of this looks to be a good path here for Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, as it's year 3 here for him. And, there are a lot of expectations, and there's always been expectations on a player like Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. And I think year 1, we got excited. There were certainly times year 2, we got excited, but the season ended early. This is a guy the Browns thought a lot of coming out of South Bend, Indiana, when they drafted him out of Notre Dame. It's time that the Browns get to see, hopefully, all of that come to fruition here. And look, the scheme is there. Hopefully the guys in front of him are there. And it's time for number 6 to go out and just be this crazy, aggressive player that blows up a lot of plays and makes a lot of plays behind the line of scrimmage, obviously taking teams from 1st and 10 to 2nd and 12, et cetera, et cetera. So for Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, this is a guy that eyes are going to be on the entire training camp, and off to a good start thus far for the former Golden Domer. Number 6, JOK. We're going to switch it up here. We're going to talk a little bit about special teams. We're going to get to a little bit about the Haslems having some media availability today. Appreciate everybody for being along for the ride here. Your latest Locked On Browns, your host, Jeff Lloyd. You guys are all the best. Make sure you are following and subscribed here on the YouTube channel. Segment 3, closing out here, your latest Locked On Browns. 3 days of training camp down at the Greenbrier in West Virginia are now in the books. We get to see a player like Elijah Moore just blowing up, showing off, kind of like a certain host here at Locked On Browns. Told you would see the defense starting to get a little bit more work there. One thing I had to get to on the defense, a lot of talk with Myles Garrett and the leadership thing, which I cannot stand. But he saw a couple of instances today with Myles Garrett taking the time out, Alex Wright showing us some hand technique. And Alex Wright is a big guy, guys. Alex Wright makes Myles Garrett look kind of slender. But also you saw Myles Garrett working with Isaiah Thomas, both second-year players. Both had a little bit of success last year. Both guys with an opportunity for more success here in 2023. So leaders lead. They may not always lead in the way you want them to lead, and then that is your problem. That is not the player's problem. But Myles Garrett sharing technique tips, talking technique with 2 younger players. Myles understands what's on the table this year. He understands the importance of a season like this with your head coach in year 4 or 5, your general manager in year 4 or 5. That is what leaders do. Maybe you don't get the rah-rah speeches. Maybe you don't get the media, however you want him to speak with the media. But let's not mistake. Myles Garrett is a leader on this team. He's a captain on this team. Maybe he doesn't show it the way you want to all see it, but this is what he does, and this is who he is. Special teams work. And kind of, getting a thought here. Obviously, the return talk is kind of where we're at. But Cade York, 5 for 5 today. And it should be a big year for Cade York. Maybe, the rookie jitters. And look, you heard me all say it a million times last year. What were things you did not want to do last year if you were the Cleveland Browns? You did not want to put the game in the hands of Jacoby Brissett. You did not want to put the game in the hands of a rookie kicker. They did it numerous times. Yes, week 1 it worked out for Cade York, but real tough spot to be in. But 5 for 5 today. When they get back to Berea, now we're going to talk about a stadium that he's more comfortable with. more comfortable with the road stadiums that he's going to be, going to every year. Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Baltimore, obviously. So Cade York, hopefully a bigger, a little bit better, higher percentage of kicks made here in year 2 for Cade York under new special teams coach Bubba Fincherone. Now, this was one now we were going to have some thoughts on, the return duties. And this was one thing that was kind of a positive for the Browns last year is punt return. Donovan Peoples-Jones did a fantastic job as a punt returner last year. He is getting some looks there. And it's going to be interesting to see the way it works out. Jalen Darden also getting looks there, which is interesting there because you didn't hear Jakeem Grant's name. And we'll see if that changes over the coming days. But for Jalen Darden, that would be the opportunity for a guy like Jalen Darden to make this roster, would be as a return man. Now we get to kick return duties, and this is also an interesting one. So Donovan Peoples-Jones still getting a look as a punt returner, but kick returner. Jerome Ford was a really solid kick returner last year. Obviously never took one in the house, but there was probably, once every 2 weeks, there was a return from Jerome Ford that went well past 40-yard line, 45-yard line, closer to 50-yard line. Jerome Ford did a really good job. So far, have not seen much of Jerome Ford in kickoff return duties. We have seen Jalen Darden. We have seen Demetric Felton. So you're seeing Darden on both these return units. Bodes well for a guy like Jalen Darden. Can he turn this into success in the preseason games and maybe make the decision a little bit easier for the Browns? But for Jerome Ford, and Andrew Berry's talked it up, Nick Chubb has talked it up, Kevin Stefanski has talked it up. As much as I think this team should bring in a veteran running back to test him, it seems the Browns feel pretty confident. And with Jerome Ford being taken off of kick return duties, obviously they feel there's going to be a path for Jerome Ford here within the offense as running back number 2, which, we all believe is going to be the way it's going to work. And what we did see of Jerome Ford last summer in exhibition games was good. It was really good. But again, 8 carries. 8 carries is 8 carries. If you think he's not capable of it, 8 carries is not going to prove your stance. If you think he is capable of running back number 2, 8 carries is not going to prove your stance. It is a wait and see approach. But obviously a lot of people within that building feel that Jerome Ford is ready. The Haslems. Now, the Haslems took to the press today. Had questions. Of course, the Browns in their pursuit of a new stadium. And, Jimmy Haslem, and there's times where you love Jimmy Haslem because he knows how to work a room. And whatever the current deal is with the Browns' next stadium, Jimmy Haslem made it abundantly clear that this franchise will not be leaving Northeast Ohio. Smart move, Jimmy. Very smart move. The expectations, and to go out and say, oh, no, we think we're going to, Jimmy, we have legitimate expectations this year. Basically what he said. And you should. You got a quarterback making $230 million. You spent a boatload of money in free agency. You have upgrades at the wide receiver position, the defensive end position, the safety position. This is a really put together well roster. To not speak of the fact that you think this team should be very competitive and very successful is just foolish. And another one that I actually kind of liked was, I think this came from Zach Jackson, The Athletic, the, market for naming rights for stadiums. And Jimmy kind of jokingly, oh, well, we're going to find out. So somebody's going to write a big old check, obviously, to go on, the side of Cleveland Browns Stadium, but also whatever will be the new stadium. So we got a lot coming at here. We'll get to see a little bit more with the offensive line. And again, Damon Jones, obviously second straight practice out with an illness. The good news is Damon Jones was given a number to show up to training camp at as far as his weight. Damon Jones met that number. So obviously that's a positive for Damon Jones. Saturday practices, he's working at left tackle. So again, look, Cedric Wills, the 5th-year option is picked up. But much like Jonah Williams from the Cincinnati Bengals, his 5th-year option was picked up. He's not going to be playing left tackle for the Cincinnati Bengals this year. So we'll see the way this plays out. But they're looking at Damon Jones with the opportunity of, could we have gotten a mid-round pick who could possibly be a starter at left tackle? And again, with all the money you're paying to a lot of these guys, it's going to be the way for the Browns for a couple of seasons to maybe save a couple of bucks if it does work out that Damon Jones is able to succeed at the left tackle position. I'm looking forward to seeing him. It's a shame we haven't gotten to see him yet to this point. But yes, Damon Jones to this point is viewed by this Browns staff, by this Browns front office, by this Browns coaching staff as a left tackle. We're going to continue, as this week comes, practices Tuesday, off Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. The pad's supposed to be going on. We thought it was going to be Thursday. Maybe they changed that up a little bit. And that's when things start to pick up a little bit here. And it's always difficult when you're not with pads on, because some players are going to go a little bit further than maybe they should have. There should be a respect kind of thing. If we're, yes, it may be live, but if you're not wearing pads, obviously we're going to, take it easy on each other. And that is one of the biggest things that's changed in the NFL over the last few years is the respect for your fellow teammate. We see it in games. So what do you think it's like in practice? You got to understand that these are guys you go to battle with. These are your friends. These are guys you spend time with. Nobody wants to see anybody go down this early in a simple training camp practice doing the simplest of things. So your highlights of today, obviously Amari Cooper, Anthony Schwartz, and Marquise Goodwin still to the side. Anthony Walker, Sione Takitaki still working at a limited capacity. Rookie left tackle out of Ohio State, Damon Jones, Farrell, a left tackle, but second straight day excused from practice with an illness. Brown's going to start to continue to ramp it up here each day. But if you want to talk about what the most important thing is to this point, as good as Deshaun Watson looked in OTAs, ball crisp, ball hitting receivers everywhere, Deshaun Watson is still tossing the pill around with a lot of success right now. And that confidence and that demeanor and maybe even a little, PO'd in attitude that a star athlete normally carries himself with is slowly starting to return to that body. And that's probably a really, really good thing for your Cleveland Browns. I am Jeff Lloyd, 7th season covering the Browns here for Locked On Browns. Could not be more thankful for the opportunity. Could not be more thankful for all of you who make Locked On Browns their first listen every single day. Join the everyday crowd. Hit the subscribe button on the Browns YouTube channel. Make sure wherever you get your podcast, you look for Locked On Browns, because we are always available, always free. And this has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. LGB on the LOB. Let's go, Browns.